What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we've got one of our 3 burnout cars we're building for 2025. Noisy Cricket up on the lift. We've got the mock-up rear end and everything out from underneath the car. We actually have some new parts in the shop today, so we're going to get those installed. We're going to get up underneath here and get all this painted and cleaned up and start putting this rear end together so we can get going on the power plant. So anyway, let's get after it. This is Buster Radio Garage. All right, guys, like I was saying, is I want to get up in here and get this all cleaned up. Most of this is just surface rust. There's not really a whole lot, that's soft or through. It looks like somebody had actually started cleaning this up and then gave up on it. They've done a pretty good job, but it's just not good enough. And I know a lot of you are thinking, well, isn't this all going to get destroyed? Yeah, pretty much. But I want to get it cleaned up a little bit. So I'm going to get some more lights under here. We're going to wire wheel this all down. I'm just probably going to paint from the subframe connectors up here back. And then we'll worry about the rest of that, getting it painted once we start doing like transmission, drive shaft, the supports, so on and so forth. So mainly I just want to get from right about where that wood is all the way back here to where the bash bar is going to be. And what do you think of that setup? I'd say at sketch level for BRG, probably around a 6, but I needed something to hold that up, and that's what we came up with. But anyway, so let's get this cleaned up, and we'll start hanging this rear end. We got some new suspension bushings and all that in from Energy, which, that's all we use here is from them. New leaf springs, the whole smash. So anyway, let's get this installed. Been a busy couple weeks. Those of you that are in the community page and members portion of the community page, you can see we've just been busier on a one-arm paper hanger. But anywho, I have wire wheeled, sanded, patched, done metal repairs, and everything under the sun on Noisy Cricket, what seems to have taken a year to do, but it hasn't. Essentially, it's done. All right, so as you've seen in some of the community stuff I put up, I've got this makeshift little body holder here. And what I've done is I've wire wheeled essentially from there all the way back to the bumper. Got everything cleaned up back to essentially brand new. Got brand new undercoating in the fender wells because those are gonna take a beating next summer. And I mean, this thing, it just looks really sharp. And we're planning on doing the same from about that cross member forward. But I'm going to have to get this rear end put in first, reposition the car, and get all that painted and cleaned up there. And then we'll install the engine, transmission, drive shaft, all that good stuff. But we've got some parts in from our friends at Energy Suspension. I just threw them all in this Summit box because I don't want to go through a million boxes that look just like this. So I just kind of dumped what I need down in here. Here's some of the old bushings that were in like the springs. And then here are the new bushings. So a lot more durable, and they're going to last a heck of a lot longer. They'll definitely outlast the car for sure. But anyway, we've got the rear end all cleaned back up, gone through. It's just sitting on these old wheels, so I can kind of just move it around the shop because that thing weighs 1,000,000 pounds. Got our new springs, got them cleaned up. Got our purchase here. We've got the actual purchases that attach to those over there on the shelf. Got to get our torque boxes put back in. But you see what I'm saying. So we got to get all this kind of finalized up. Get, our drive shaft angle at a really good guess of where it's going to go. I'll get under here in a minute and I'll show you. I've got the center of my trans tunnel marked all the way up to the front. So it kind of gives me an idea to where to center the rear end within, the springs here. Ultimately, I have to do probably some final moving around on that when we get to it. But anyway, I got to start getting ready to get this engine put in here. It's about done. And then we can get it all built back with all of this good stuff from Homer. And then, boy, I'm here to tell you, you ought to see the wrap for this car. It's just going to blow your freaking mind. The members already know. I've showed it in the members tab of the community page. If you guys want to become a member, I'm here to tell you it's absolutely worth it. I'm not doing a sales pitch on you, but $5 a month and the goodies you get, plus all the information ahead of time and the videos and all that good night. It's unreal. But anywho, so yeah, so I've got to get this buttoned up today, and then I've got to get going on this engine bay. Essentially from the front bumper to about right here has got to be cleaned up and painted. It doesn't have to be, but if you're going to do it, you might as well do it right. So anyway, let's get back to work. Good deal, guys. There we go. So we now have our torque boxes installed with our new grade A bolts hooked to the new springs. This is all final tightened. I don't have to fool with it anymore. So we just got the springs laying here with the new purchase. Got this done on both sides. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and lower this down. We'll go ahead and get the rear end set up here on the purchase, get that ready. We'll get it back up in the air. We'll get our new bushings from Energy Suspension put in. We'll get this set up, get it kind of about halfway tightened down, just kind of setting there. And then we'll have to get everything lined up with our trans and drive shaft tunnel, get this all ready to go. And I think that's going to be it for now until we get the engine installed. So the next thing I want to do is drop this down, go through this cabin, get all of the electrical out. Get all that crap out of the car because I got a new harness coming from Painless, to where we can run everything in this car just like it was when it was new. Turn signals, headlights, tail lights, brakes, the whole smash, because we plan on taking this on some small drag and drives and playing around with it a little bit out at events. Drive it actually on the road. And with that new wrap, this thing's going to stick out like a sore thumb. I mean, it's going to be unfreaking believable. Then, once we get all that done, we'll start working on the engine bay, because hopefully sometime next week, this engine is complete and we can build it back with all the fun stuff sitting over here. And then while that's happening, we're going to get started on the new Homer. So good night of living. We got a lot going on. So anyway, let's get this rear end under here and keep getting after it. All right, big guy, come on. Let's get you in there. Mercy sakes. All right, guys, got everything kind of set up in here. So I'm getting the U-bolts put in with the perches, the lower perches, upper perches already put in. This is where your shocks tie in, all that jazz. So I'm just laying under here. Got a little bit of Tay-Tay music going on over here on the big screen. Just the, motivation's what I'm saying. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these U-bolts tightened down, get this rear end kind of like in place. We'll get it back up in the air, line everything up, and we're just gonna keep on keeping on. All right, guys, I got everything just kind of mocked up here. Nothing is tightened all the way down. It's just kind of sitting there. So what I want to do next is, get this rear end shoved up in here so I can get my leaf springs hooked up here in their perches. So the plan is to lower the car down, center the rear end up on this jack, which is already up in the air, and then just ease it down and shove this rear end up in here. And then I'll stop the lift, hook all this crap up, get the bushings put in, and then we'll start finalizing everything here and get going on the rest of the car. So let's see if this fancy little idea will work. Boom! All right, good deal. Let's go ahead and raise that back up a tickle. let's get these leaf springs hooked up. Sweet. Gotta love it when a plan comes together. All right, cool guys. You just see me sitting there taking this 4x4 and a hammer beating on this side of the rear end because I'm getting everything lined up before I go ahead and do my final tight down of the U-bolts, you know, springs, all this jazz, get everything perfectly in place. And if you look at it from the back, it looks like we're, you know, probably 4 inches off center to the left, but you don't want to judge it off this. You want to do some final measurements, obviously, but here, let me take you underneath the car. I know this is going to be kind of difficult to see, but what I'm lining up is essentially my yoke here with the center of my drive shaft / trans tunnel, right? So if we go back here and we look down, my yoke is perfectly centered with the middle. Now we may have to do some final adjustments on that when we do, you know, our drive shaft angle and all that jazz. And it all depends where that 360 transmission is going to fall in here, but that's close enough to where I'm happy with it. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and now final tighten everything down and get this all buttoned up so I can get up here and get to working around. And as you can see, we've still got to wire wheel and clean everything from essentially right here all the way up to the front. Get this all wire wheeled and cleaned up. Just double check everything on the frame, make sure we're good, which everything has seemed to be fine with the exception of one spot back here, which we cut out and fixed. But anyway, yeah, get up from under here. I know this only seems like a couple minutes for you guys, but whew, good night of living. It's been a day down here. But anyway, you do what you can do, right? So yeah, but this looks amazing. I can't complain. So I've got my energy suspension bushings in here. So we'll get the rest of this tied in and get those in. Same thing on this other side here. But no, this looks really sick. That rear end looks really cool. I wanted to paint it to match the wrap, but man, after you get done with the season of beating on this thing, it's covered in oil and dust and rubber and metal, and so we're just gonna leave it all black and be done with it. Yeah, spacing turns out really good. I got a lot of kickback on this B-body rear end fitting in an F-body car, but I mean, I think it's gonna be just fine. We're even with our fender wells. Obviously, we're gonna do some offset change because you're gonna see we've got roughly 4 inches of room from the inner side of our lip till we're even getting anywhere close to in here. So we're running a different offset, get the wheels way in, which is fine, no big deal. And then we're gonna have to build our gator cutters up in here to cut off the treads of the tires. Generally our cars whip them down pretty good, but just in case. All right, so let's get this all tightened down. Final button up, we'll get kind of a guess on the angle for the rear end. And we're gonna move on to a different section of the car. Because to be honest with you, I've got a boatload of hours in this just getting it cleaned up and fixed. I need to get going on something else. All right, guys, there we go. Everything is hooked up. We just gotta lower the car down to compress these springs a little bit so we can get our shocks put back on. And then this thing is set. We gotta get our tires put on too so we can move this around. But before I do that, I gotta get all that cribbing out of there. A good deal. Cool, let's keep going. All right, guys, well, I was taking Noisy Cricket off the lift, and I'll show you that here in a minute, and something in my lift broke. So I gotta take this cover off and see what's going on. So figure I might as well show you that too. So I've got hella slack in my cable, and down in there, it looks like it came off the pulley. So we're gonna take this cover off and see what we got going on. See if I can put it back on, if it's a simple fix, or I gotta call a wildfire. Lovely. All right, guys, so yeah, fortunately we caught it right here when everything was on the ground, but my cable come off this pulley. So let me get this fixed and we'll get to showing you what we got going on over here. All right, boys and girls, got the lid fixed. It was just the cable had come off the pulley for some odd reason. I'm not really for sure. So I bolted it up there, dropped the cable down, you know, cable to tighten it back up, got tension back on it. It is good to go. All right, so now let's get back on Noisy Cricket. And here we go here. Everything is completely done, painted, final mounted, bolts all tightened back up, good to go. Got the shocks back on. So now what we got here, if you've been watching this or if you're new to the channel, this is a B-body Mopar 9 1/4 out of a 78 Chrysler 300/Cordoba. Same difference, right? B-body platform, Cordoba, 300, Charger, whatever. Anyway, and we did not have to narrow it. We didn't have to modify anything with the exception to the perch location for the springs, which wasn't that big of a deal. So we've got new purchase springs, new U-bolts, shocks. These are actually the shocks that are on here. And to be honest with you, the reason I use those are a couple $100 to replace, and there isn't a thing wrong with those on there. So we got everything set up under here. Keep in mind, I still got to paint this like I said earlier, but we've got our yoke lined up perfect with our trans/drive shaft tunnel all the way up here. Now, obviously, we'll have to wait and see where the engine falls, but it should fall in the normal location. So if you can see, the thing's going to run dead center right up through here. So there shouldn't be any issue with running that 9 1/4, which in my opinion is the more durable rear end, say, compared to an 8 3/4. I would rather have that than anything else. So yeah, but there it is. That is very, very cool. I'm very happy with it. So next, what I've got to do is I've got to get the rest of this under here, wire wheeled, cleaned up. I don't believe I have any patches anywhere here at all. I'll just test the frame rail real good, which everything appears to be fine on this car. Again, I did have a small patch back there, which wasn't that big a deal. I just did it for craps and giggles, really. So we get all this cleaned up, get it painted. I'm gonna get rid of the power steering pump. I'm not gonna have any use for that thing whatsoever. Might get a hold of Motion and get a different steering shaft, if that makes sense. We'll get rid of all these brake lines for the back, fuel lines, all that crap. We're not gonna need any of it. And yeah, so hopefully my engine is done for this next week or after Thanksgiving. So we'll get the engine put in this, the engine put in the VGG Monza sitting over there, which is now named Monzilla. And then we'll get the new Homer body in here and get Homer 3.0 going. So this car here should button up pretty quick. We've got a killer wrap for this, and if you remember, you already know what that is. So I'm gonna do some painting jazz on the interior of that, just to make it cool for the crowd. You know, the kiddos that like take seats in the cars and whatever. But this car's gonna move on pretty quick. We'll get that engine put in. Again, it's gonna get a blown 408. Exactly the engine that came out of Homer 2.0, which everything is sitting here waiting on that to come back. So that'll move super quick. It's gonna go up to TNF Signs in Maysville. As you guys know, they take care of everything for us, 100% at all. So they'll get this wrapped, we'll get it done, do a test burn out in it, and this car is gonna get parked and it'll be done. We'll hurry up and bust that Monza out real quick. That's not gonna take long. That's just simply an engine, transmission, stiffen up the rear end a little bit better than it is, race seat, and roll with it. The big build's gonna be Homer 3.0. That is gonna take a lot of additional work, a lot of additional support, a lot of additional everything, because that engine is insane. I mean, I just cannot wait to show it to you. But anyway, that's gonna be 3 burnout cars we're definitely doing during the winter. I promised you at least those 3, and we're gonna try for 5 cars, which would be some updates to my RT, and then get going on our girl hot mess sitting back here. That'd be 5 cars in one winter, which would be mind-blowing for one dude and one big fat dude in his shop, right, on his days off. So anyhow, that is very, very cool. Next week, we'll get to interior on this, hopefully getting to the engine bay underneath, and then we'll start plumbing it for fuel, electric, because we got a new harness for a new harness from Painless coming. So we'll get all the digital crap taken care of. But no, I couldn't be happier with that 9 1/4. Absolutely thrilled to death. I'd asked a few people, a lot of people said it couldn't be done unless it was narrowed. Well, there it is. And it turned out sick. I love it. So anyway, we'll catch you next time. I appreciate you watching. BRG out.